Welcome to the Fantasy Source Baseball Podcast. My name is David A. Arnott, sitting here with Matt Lutovsky, and today we are talking about closers. We're not just talking. We're not talking about coffee, but we are talking about closers.
That's right. ABC today. That's what it's all about.
So, what do you have for me today, Matt? What is the scene looking like for closers? And if you've already had your draft and you've drafted some closers, should you be worried?
Yeah, you should. You should be panicking. No, it's interesting. I feel like I've talked about closers almost every podcast we've done, even when it's like we're talking about catchers. Somehow I'll bring up closers because this year really is crazy. How many open jobs there are, tenuous jobs.
Just in flux.
It's crazy. And right now, I mean, the big one is Neftali Feliz. And I thought we were, through the looking glass with him when he came out last week and said, I want to be a closer. And all of a sudden yesterday, I think I want to be a starter. Mm-hmm. So now what? I mean, we're talking about an elite closer. This isn't just middle of the road, this would be nice if he closed or what have you. This is an elite closer, rookie of the year. And I got to believe now he's starting. They want him to start. He has more value as a starter. He wants to start now. He's probably starting.
I mean, real-life baseball, they are probably better off having him become a starter.
Right.
And even if he's just a little bit better than league average, he'll have way more value to them than as a closer where, honestly, they had C.J. Wilson, I think it was, just sitting in there and, doing a decent enough job. And then they've managed to somehow get leverage out of him going into the starting rank.
Right. And, the question now fantasy owners have is, A, what value does Feliz have as a starter? Mm-hmm. Which we obviously don't know. He definitely does not have as much fantasy value as a starter just because there's so much unknown. Can he last longer than 6 innings? Can he get through a lineup 3 times, what have you?
Unless you're in one of those weird leagues with no innings limits and now you have a relief pitcher who's starting and so on and so forth.
But ultimately, I'm thinking he's all of a sudden now, a 16th round pick, whereas he was going 7th, 8th round as a closer. Mm-hmm. But the big question now, who's closing for the Rangers? And, I don't know. They don't know yet. Mm-hmm. Mark Lowe and Alexia Gondo are probably the leading candidates. I would throw maybe Arthur Rhodes in there too, But Ogando has great stuff. Fantastic. I wrote down his minor league numbers. 1.37 ERA, .91 whip, 12.6 K per 9. The stuff is there. It's pretty sick. That's in over 100 minor league innings. I would think he would get the job. You never know how teams worry about young guys, what have you. But I would think it'll be him, and he has a lot of upside. He's actually not that much different than Kimbrel in Atlanta, who everyone was in love with, myself included, who is now in a committee situation, which is another crazy one. But Alexia Gondo, someone to watch, worth that late round flyer, since we don't know. If you're drafted today, tomorrow, what have you.
So you mentioned the Rangers already. You mentioned the Braves. Yes. What are some of the other teams that have some fascinating closer situations going on? I'm keeping a close eye on the White Sox situation myself because both of those guys, Matt Thornton, Chris Sale, they could easily be, in my mind, top 5 closers because of their strikeout potential.
Yeah, they're very good pitchers, both lefties, so there's there's nothing we can gauge from that. And I said this before earlier in the year. I feel like numerous times in the past, it's looked like Matt Thornton was going to be the White Sox closer, and somehow, by hook or by crook, they found a way not to make him the closer. I'm getting that feeling again, Guillen won't commit. The one thing, though, I do think bodes well for him is that he just signed this extension. Mm-hmm. And this is me playing a little amateur psychologist, but I have a feeling at some point someone said, hey, am I going to be the closer? Otherwise, I'm not signing this. They said, yes, he signed it. But we don't know, and like you said, they're both great. That's interesting. And the other big one, of course, yesterday, Andrew Bailey, Dr. James Andrews.
Enough said.
Yeah, it's enough said. And look, this guy's been hurt off and on the past couple of years. We don't know right now what the diagnosis is, but it's scary. It's scary enough. And another team with, literally their entire bullpen is a candidate to close.
Right.
Every one of those guys has been a closer in the past. Fuentes, Balfour, Wirtz, Breslow, Ziegler, even Devine.
Note that none of those guys are guys that you would say are top flight closer people, but they all have the sheen of proven closer.
Well, Wirtz,
Fuentes sort of was.
Right. Wirtz has had great numbers in the past. Mm-hmm. Devine, the 1 year he was healthy, was great. But right now, I would think Fuentes gets the nod just because of experience. And he should be just fine pitching out in Oakland. It's a good ballpark for him to pitch in, so that's another situation to keep tabs on.
You've brought up the specter of injury already.
Right.
The Mariners are a team that have a closer with some injury issues. Well, tell me about what's going on with them.
Yeah, Arzma, injured hip. right now, it looks like Brandon League. There was some talk about Chris Ray might be in the mix too. He's a little dinged up as well. So it looks like it's Brandon League until Ardsma's healthy. Ardsma probably out till around May. So Brandon League, worth that late round flyer too. He was pretty good last year. Throw him in. Maybe you can get 10 saves out of him. You never know. Probably more likely 4 or 5, but who knows?
So we've gone through the closer who doesn't want to close, so he's going to possibly switch roles. Then we've got the injury issues leading to things. Then we've got the position battle with the White Sox. And then there are the teams that are just openly saying, hey, I think we're going to go with the committee.
Right. We already mentioned the Braves. Looks like that's going to be Venners, Kimbrel, probably lefty-righty. Depends who they've used or who's coming up in the ninth. The big one, we just found out about it, Drew Storen with the Nationals, who a lot of people had tabbed as a must-have sleeper. Mm-hmm. Nationals are saying, hey, we don't like the way this guy's throwing right now. We might go committee. And that's kind of crazy. I mean, you got Tyler Clippard, who was fantastic last year as a middle reliever. Fantasy value inflated by his wins, which was fluky, but still high K guy, high usage guy. He's in the mix. All of a sudden, he's worth a late round draft pick.
I mean, and let's not overplay this, but come September, if they're actually in contention or something, you got a pretty highly ranked prospect coming back from injury that you might say, hey, let's see him in the bullpen to limit his innings, and Steven Strasburg.
Yeah, you just never know, and so that situation, nothing's official yet, but definitely bears watching. Tampa is just a total. It's just crazy, and I think right now Jake McGee is the guy to get there if you're going to draft someone, just because high K guy, most upside. I think we're still projecting Farnsworth to get the majority of the saves early, but that's a mess. Toronto's kind of a mess, especially with Francisco being hurt.
Well, see, the difference between Toronto and Tampa and then, say, the Baltimore situation is that, in my mind, Baltimore doesn't even have talented guys. They're just throwing guys at the fence and hoping some of them stick.
Well, I mean, it's true. I mean, Kevin Gregg definitely isn't that good. I mean, Uhara was good last year. He can't stay healthy, and Gonzalez has been good in the past. Can't stay healthy.
Let's not even talk about Alfredo Simon.
Right, and then there's him. So, but all 4 of those situations, 3 of them in the AL East, which is kind of crazy. We don't know right now what's going to happen, and they all bear watching. And someone's going to emerge, and someone's going to have value.
So, with this many teams with closer situations in flux, and drafts happening right now, what would you say is the immediate takeaway, the main takeaway for your draft? Do you think that it means that you have to lock up set closers? Like, say, Mariano Rivera, right? Mm-hmm. Prime example. He's going to be a top 5 closer just about every league. Would you say, yeah, make sure you lock him up, maybe even reach for him a little bit just to have that certainty? Or do you say would you be more likely to tell people, look, sit it out. Get guys that are going to be, that you're pretty certain are going to be closers, but don't worry about being exactly right. You're going to figure it out along with everyone else and try to compete on the waiver wire.
Yeah, I definitely don't reach for him. Closer's just too volatile. There's no point. And everyone does that thing every year. I got a sure thing until he gets hurt or he's not a sure thing. So I definitely don't advise going that route. I think you can find a guy. I just had a draft last night. I got Brandon Lyon super late. Mm-hmm. And now Brandon Lyon isn't a great pitcher, but you talk about a guy who's locked into his role.
He meets a baseline.
Right. I got him as my 3rd closer. There's guys like that. Even Ryan Franklin. They're super unexciting to draft, but they're there. They're kind of sick. Houston Street, I think, falls into that category. Yep. Those are the guys. You make sure you get them as your 2nd one or 3rd, and that's how I think you can get through this without with minimal damage, and then just watch the waiver wire because it's gonna be turnover. There always is.
It's gonna be a mess out there.
Yeah.
Just a mess. Yes. All right, Matt. Thanks for joining us.
All right.